Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
So, I just want to say 3 weeks ago, I tweeted something to the effect of, I said, you know what? For all of you people that aren't down with the slow burn of the first 2 episodes of WandaVision, I said, I will bet you that by the end of episode 5, you'll all be saying to yourselves, holy shit. Judging by social media, that's exactly what happened. Now, I'm not saying I'm the entertainment oracle of Delphi or at Delphi, but you all know that I kind of am. Most of the predictions I make on this show, I wonder what my percentage rate is. I don't know, because I speak extemporaneously, and who knows? I mean, I never go back and fact-check myself, although people have called in to fact-check me, and I'm very happy to admit when I'm wrong and to correct myself. I have no shame. When you're talking just off the cuff for hours on end, you're going to make mistakes. And as long as I don't offend anyone with those mistakes, I guess I'm doing okay. What do you think, Thanos? Well, he's ready. He's threatening to snap his fingers. As you can see, he's got the Infinity Gauntlet ready to snap. Maybe if I do something wrong, I'll just be gone, right? Mid-sentence. But anyway, so episode 5 of WandaVision dropped, which means we are now on the back end. 5 was our Rubicon. We've crossed it. Oh, boy. But you know what? It really got me thinking. Watching WandaVision got me thinking. And I don't know about all of you who are, I don't know if you're MCU fans or whatever, but I have found WandaVision so far to be enormously satisfying. And it really got me thinking about, well, why? Why is it satisfying? What is it about the MCU that I find enormously satisfying? Now, you know what? You could get into a philosophical debate about, a lot of people say that the MCU plays it safe. The MCU plays it, it's a little milquetoast, maybe a little too middle of the road for some people. I don't know what they're expecting because it is based on Marvel Comics. And as somebody who's been reading Marvel Comics my whole life, the beauty of seeing the realization of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it has grown, 23 movies so far. It should have been 24, but we haven't seen Black Widow yet. But 23 movies and now 1 television show. We know that there's a film waiting in the wings with Black Widow and another one in Eternals. 2 films that are completed. We've got Shang-Chi following that up. And apparently Spider-Man 3 is coming. We don't know when necessarily. We also know that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is coming. But anyway, you're going to be looking at 23, 24, 25, 26 films. Thor Love and Thunder is shooting. And we know that we're getting, after WandaVision, starting in March, we're getting The Falcon and Winter Soldier. Apparently there's even a Super Bowl spot you can watch for that. But I was thinking, you know, of all the franchises that have ever existed, entertainment franchises, take your pick. Doctor Who, Star Wars, James Bond, whatever. I think the most consistent, certainly with the best track record, has been the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Why is that? Why is Marvel, I mean, I would say the obvious one being that you have Kevin Feige at the helm, Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, and Victoria Alonso. The people running the Marvel Cinematic Universe are the reason why it is doing so well. Now, I mentioned this on another podcast I was on yesterday. One of my favorite books I ever read about the entertainment industry was screenwriter William Goldman, screenwriter and novelist. William Goldman, of course, wrote the screenplays for things like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He also wrote the book The Princess Bride and adapted the screenplay for Rob Reiner, adapted the book into a screenplay for Rob Reiner. And he famously said in his book, Adventures in the Screen Trade, which, like I said yesterday, the references might be a little old, so they're not rolling off your tongue when you read them. They were at the time when I read the book. I think I read the book in the 80s when it first came out. But the old adage that no one in Hollywood knows anything. And the thing about Hollywood is the reason no one knows anything, because if you know something and if you say, oh, yes, I know this, and you're wrong, you could lose your job. You could be drummed out of the industry because so much is at stake. But there is one person, and I will say, I used to call him the Lord and Savior, Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige, he knows. He knows. And how do I know this? I know this because the work speaks for itself. Like I'm always fond of saying, allow your work to be the locomotive on the train track of your life. You let the locomotive be your work, you're the caboose. And if the locomotive is strong and it's fired up and you got enough coal in the engine and there's maintenance that's been done, good work. The good work is the locomotive. That locomotive will take you down the tracks and you can get off wherever you want. You can have a whistle stop. You can talk to people. You can, metaphorically, do whatever you want. The stronger your locomotive is, the stronger the work that you've done is, the more places you'll go. Well, I would say that I've never seen a stronger franchise ever in entertainment history since I've been alive than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Collectively, 23 movies, if you average them out, made $1 billion. We've talked about this. How many times do I have to say this? Kevin Feige cut his teeth on 13 Marvel movies before he worked on Iron Man, before there was an MCU. And that's not to say they haven't been always entirely successful. People look at The Incredible Hulk, people look at Iron Man 2, people look at Thor: The Dark World. But even on a scale of 1 to 10, it's not like those were below 6. Even maybe the lowest point of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is what another franchise might consider their high point. And certainly, I was curious, is Marvel's first foray into television, is that going to be something? Is it going to work out for them? Is Wanda Maximoff going to be is she going to carry the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Is she going to be able to cast her spell over viewers the way I'm sure Kevin Feige would want her to? We didn't know. 5 episodes in, I'd say we do now. But why? What is it that makes a successful franchise? How is it that other franchises, which should be long-time franchises that have been around a lot longer than the Marvel Cinematic Universe, why aren't they as satisfying? Well, first and foremost is, I would say, leadership. As I said, the people at the top, starting with Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, and Victoria Alonso, the three of them, I don't know what kind of... They're the Three Musketeers. I don't know if they have D'Artagnan, but they're the Three Musketeers. They know how to make shit happen. They wield their swords better than anybody. And it's because they know. Unlike what William Goldman might say, nobody knows anything. They know. As a matter of fact, I would dare say they're the only people that know. In all of Hollywood, they're the only people that know. Like if I had to place a bet, even if someone said, Rob, we have to fend off an alien invasion from some foreign extraterrestrial power, who would you pick on Earth to lead the fight against the extraterrestrials? I'd say I know. I would pick Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, and Victoria Alonso. And people say, like, who are they? What about our great military leaders? I'm like, no, I don't trust them. I do trust the heads of Marvel as far as it goes. But so I was looking up. I was like, okay, is there somebody or someplace? Me. I look for articles, look for things to talk about on the show. Is there an article? And lo and behold, I thought I'd find some Bob Iger piece of work, but this was on Invoke. It's a website. Invoke Big Qual Decisions. Building a billion-dollar entertainment franchise, or building billion-dollar entertainment franchises, a conversation with Roger Miller. Entertainment franchises are at the heart of leading industry brands. If successful, franchises guarantee long-term profitability and consumer success that extends beyond the big screen. And this was published by Julia Condon. It was last updated on December 8th, 2020. And I thought this was sort of interesting because this is more of a business look at franchises. So I thought I would share, because maybe you'll find this article as interesting as I found this article about franchises, looking at it from a business perspective. So why don't we take a gander at this article? We sat down virtually with entertainment industry franchise leader Roger Miller entertainment consultant, former vice president of integrated planning and franchise management at where? The Walt Disney Studio. To unlock the secrets behind building and maintaining successful entertainment franchises. For nearly 2 decades, Roger worked with some of the most ubiquitous franchises in the business at Disney. From the studio's original star Mickey Mouse and the Disney Princesses Collective to the more recent favorites like Star Wars and Marvel, Disney boasts some of the most well-known franchises in entertainment. So, what does it take to create and maintain the world's leading media and entertainment franchises? Read on to see what we discovered from our discussion with Roger Miller. Planning for entertainment franchise success. You're probably wondering, is there a secret sauce, something that ensures a movie will become a franchise? According to this article, the answer is complex. When it comes to determining which movies will launch into successful entertainment franchises, there is one common theme. And I thought this nailed it, which is not rocket science here, the enthusiasm of the viewers. Like myself, the fact that I said weeks ago at the end of episode 5, by the way, I knew nothing about WandaVision. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing that was going to happen in the show before I watched it, knew nothing. And I said by the end of episode 5, we will all be going, holy shit, waiting with bated breath until the next episode. Well, last night I stayed up and watched episode 5, and at the end, even though I knew it was coming, I still, even after watching the episode, thought to myself, holy shit, because the whole episode surprised me, where's this going to go? Movie watchers tell you whether or not something is going to be a franchise, Miller says. You need all the parts. A universe that feels so full and quality storytelling. But you need the reaction from consumers. There are a lot of film franchises that people determined were going to be franchises before they ever came out that didn't necessarily have the audience respect after they released. That being said, Miller says you must expect success from the very beginning to establish franchise longevity if the story takes off with viewers. Expecting success means planning for opportunities to engage viewers and fans with the content outside of the initial launch. Miller explains, quote, having those conversations early, planning for it, and understanding who everyone's core consumer is and how they would want to activate against the core launch of the movie and how they see ongoing engagement or ongoing touch points helps companies maintain their business. Such corporate speak. Creating integrated plans for success. A key component of long-term franchise success is aligning creator and business stakeholders' ideas and goals for the property. It's important to align on goals and keep plans integrated across departments and functions while keeping fans top of mind. Miller breaks down this delicate balance. A lot of integrated plans are about conversations with filmmakers, conversations with marketing, conversations with business partners that are looking to commercialize that launch event without hurting your core fan base. Research plays a key role in keeping franchises alive and thriving too. In Miller's own words, in the media industry, people are consolidating their businesses and thinking more collectively. That will impact research because currently, prior to some of these things, there's television research, there's movie tracking and movie research, there's social listening, there's consumer product data from NPD data. They're looking at different segments and splits, so it's very challenging to aggregate it. The key to unlocking insights from research is to aggregate these various forms of data to see the bigger picture. Ultimately, viewers decide whether content succeeds. As Miller says, let the consumer decide. If you offer it and it doesn't work, then you don't do it again. Social media provides instant superfan feedback. Consumers not only sway a franchise's success by choosing to view it or not, they also influence the success of the brand by voicing their opinions online. With 3.81 billion people actively using social media in the world today, social listening has quickly become a tool for collecting consumer feedback. Miller says, through social platforms, we hear more instant feedback, we hear feedback early and often, whereas you waited for tracking or other kinds of data before. Social media helps studios to determine whether their content is creating any sort of buzz and what kind of buzz it's creating. Outside of more traditional consumer research, social media allows studios direct access to their top fans' perspectives. Miller elaborates, this gives you a pulse of your most engaged because they're the ones constantly commenting versus your more passive audience. Streaming's impact on brands. Besides social media, another internet-based phenomenon is changing the media landscape. The increasing shift from traditional broadcast television to streaming platforms changes the ways consumer regards brands, networks, and franchises. Miller notes, I think it'd be very fascinating to see how much people become loyal to streaming services and their brands, or if they remain loyal to the actual show. In the past, viewers were more aware of the network they were consuming content on. It was easier to tell if a TV show was from MTV or National Geographic, for example. Today, television shows and franchises themselves receive more brand recognition than the streaming platform they're hosted on. Depends what the show is, I think. Platforms like Netflix and Hulu attempt to bridge this gap by creating original content, but these platforms lack the focused brand positionings that networks have cultivated over the years. Miller adds, it will be interesting to see as people have a direct consumer relationship whether or not they will push their own brand to drive more value and connection to their own content versus continuing to play in those different sorts of lanes or just original or cool new content that you know for the name of the show, not the brand that brought it to you. Now, there is a longer interview with him, and I think that I'll put this in the live chat so you can check it out. But when I read this, what I thought was really interesting about this article is it says a lot of, here's the article, by the way, there's an interview with him too. But at the top of this article, it says, well, basically what he's saying is that engagement with your fans is crucial because the core of your brand, whatever your franchise is going to be, it's a franchise because it has fans. And your core fans, your uber fans, are the people that keep it going. Now, one of the things that I find interesting lately is there's been a lot of talk in our imagination circles about, do you prefer a binge model or a weekly model, rolling out shows over the course of a week? Or we've had lately hybrid models. Let's release 2 and 3 episodes of a series, you get people hooked, and then you wheel them in with a weekly, you reel them in, not wheel them in. You don't want to wheel your audience in, you want to reel them in. If you have to wheel them in, that means they probably have a broken leg or they're too infirm to even pay attention to your franchise, so you want to reel them in. So you do that by creating a buzz. And I have to say, again, Kevin Feige knows what's up. Do we release WandaVision as a binge model or do we release it weekly? Well, if they had released this as a binging model, you would not have the entire internet being burned up every time they release an episode, meaning the engagement and the fan investment in your product is amazing. Now, here's the thing. Part of the reason that WandaVision is so... the story, I think, has been wonderful. It has far exceeded my expectations. But what's really interesting about WandaVision, if you think about it, it has roots. It is both sequel and prequel to various, well, basically all of the MCU. So in a way, you could find distant ties to even the furthest reaches of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you've got 23 movies that it is a sequel to. And now one of the genius things that Kevin Feige has done, Kevin Feige and his crew, is, and you'd think that somehow this would be a no-brainer. But one of the things that they have done over at Marvel is shocking, is they go to their original inspiration, which were the Marvel comic books. The Marvel comic books themselves, such as the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries from the mid-'80s. They look at something like that, and the one that came before this one. And Lovers and Zombies. I mean, look at this. 1 in a 12-issue miniseries, Lovers and Zombies, Vision and Scarlet Witch. Well, there you go. Tell me that isn't something they were inspired by when they made WandaVision. But that's one of the geniuses of the MCU. Kevin Feige knows, like, we already have our core brand. It's being published for decade after decade after decade. There's been some amazing storytellers that have told these wonderful stories. So we already have where we're going to look to. We don't have to copy them exactly, but let's go look there, and we'll find whatever we need. It's all there. And that's somebody who's smart. and they work within a paradigm, and it's amazing. And what I have been so amazed by as we've watched WandaVision unfold over 5 episodes now, and this was a longer episode, it was 41 minutes, the way it was integrated into the rest of the Marvel Universe, it was integrated into the rest of the Marvel Universe because it presupposes intelligence on the part of the viewer. They are not afraid. I even have people coming after me on Twitter going, well, the casual viewer who's watching this show is not going to know about the comic connections or the movie connections or these distant connections, and how is that going to appeal to the normal viewer? And I would say there are no casual viewers of the MCU. Not now. And everybody's invested. Even if you don't know anything, you go onto the internet the next day, you jump on, and you can see any number of spoiler discussions or explanations for what happened, deep Easter eggs in this episode or that episode. What the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done, what this interview had said to do, is create engagement with the viewer. And WandaVision, I think, more so than any other, the biggest engagement any viewers had as far as the MCU goes was, of course, the end of Infinity War. After the snapping, or the dusting, whatever you want to call it. After the snapping happened, everybody was invested. What's going to happen? Oh my God, I can't believe it. How are they going to get out of this one? So, brilliantly, there was a year's worth of speculation fueled by people's fervor, which brought our love of Marvel to a fever pitch. And whether you want to be cynical and say, oh, there were things in Endgame that didn't make sense or whatever, that's fine. I don't begrudge you that. But in terms of a giant, massive fantasy epic, there have been few achievements grander than the 1-2 punch of Infinity War and Endgame. In terms of incorporating all the deliciousness you might possibly have wanted from a franchise. And why? Because it was all planned. Because the powers that be, Kevin Feige knows his core audience isn't stupid. And he also knows his core audience wants them to succeed. His core audience, and I consider myself, I'm at the forefront, I'm the apex of whatever that core audience is. That's me. That's me, middle-aged man with one foot in the grave. I still am waiting with bated breath. Now, do I sit there and think, well, the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't as good as Lord of the Rings, and it's not as good as Star Wars or Doctor Who or James Bond? I mean, come on, Rob, you've liked James Bond for a lot long. Yes, it is true, but I've never had such a satisfying relationship with an entertainment franchise as I've had with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What about Star Trek? Now look, Star Trek is my jam. It's one of my favorite things since I was a kid, but even Star Trek has not been as satisfying as being an MCU fan because there's been a lot of things that Star Trek, let's face it, has come up short with, like the last 12 years. But also before that, there was a lot of things. I mean, the Star Trek movies were hit and miss. Star Trek itself, even the original series, still served up swill like And the Children Shall Lead. I mean, Spock's brain, I learned to have kind of a retro laugh at it, and there are girls in go-go boots and miniskirts, the givers of pain and delight. So I can overlook that, but you still get episodes, I mean, Plato's Stepchildren's sort of interesting, but we're stepping into Eden, so it's not like Star Trek is beyond reproach. Of course, Star Wars let me down in 1983 with Return of the Jedi, especially coming on the heels of Empire. I've said that a million times, but whatever. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe, now, for what it is, I don't expect War and Peace. I'm going to see the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is an adaptation of the Marvel superheroes that I've grown up loving. So I'm not expecting to come out of it even with the same feel as Lord of the Rings. I'm expecting to get comic book action, adventure, and I want to see the realizations of the characters I've seen on the 4-color funny pages my whole life. And I got that. I got that because the people that are making the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they know what they're doing. If you ask them a question, they'll tell you an answer, and they would be right. And I think that's something that we have to remember going forward. The problem is, in order to have a successful franchise, you need to have people that are working on the franchise that love it too. And I think when franchises fall on their heads, it's because the people that are working on the franchises don't love it as much as their fans do. And I think the only reason you can develop the kind of fan base that all of these franchises want is when it's very apparent to the people at home watching that the people that are making the show love the source material and love the franchise as much as they want their audiences to love the franchise. And I think that's it. I think ultimately that is the secret. It's engaging fandom, meaning your audience, but really it ultimately comes down to you have to be making a product, meaning the franchise, that you as a creator believe in and love. And I mean love it for its own sake. Love it holistically. Don't love it because it's going to, bring you a good paycheck. I mean, you really need to love this franchise. And I don't think, there's been all this talk about how, like, working on Star Trek and Star Wars, they never wanted to have fans come on and work on Star Trek. Like, if you were a fan, you had to, downplay that because everyone's like, no, this isn't like our old Star Trek. I think that way lies death. I think ultimately you're either working on a franchise or you're not. You're either accepting everything about that franchise or you're not. And you love your fans. Your fans are not, they're the reason the franchises have endured for 50 plus years. You who are currently, look, this, as Renee Belloc said to Indiana Jones, we're just passing through history. But this, pointing at the Ark, this is history. Our franchises are history. And the creators and even the audiences are just passing through. But if you want to stop and garner an audience, you as a franchise creator, you need to love that franchise. It is very clear and very apparent, especially when you're watching WandaVision, that these people who are making this show, whether it's your writer, creator, whether it's the director who's been directing every episode, whether it's the actors, I mean, Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, how much fun are they having? They have to be loving what they're doing because it comes through in every episode. It oozes off the screen. The fun everyone is having, the care with which these episodes are, the design work. I mean, the integrated design throughout this entire show. One day when the show is all over, I'm sure we're going to get like the Art of WandaVision or something, and they'll take us through everything. Whether it's the period commercials, which, do they all represent Infinity Stones? Could be, I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me because that level of thinking and every commercial as it relates back to something from the previous movies that we can recognize, whether it's a person or a place, it's unbelievable. It's astonishing. And I just think to myself, my God, the people over at the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what they're doing over there, they're mad geniuses because they care so much and love it so much and imbue their work with so much love and affection that it's, for me as somebody, I am getting exactly, it's funny to me, I'm getting exactly from the Marvel Universe, first what I expected, what I hoped it would be, and I'm surprised by it. Even when, again, it can sometimes be uneven, but ultimately I think things have great watchability and I love them, but because the people who are making these things know that the fans will appreciate what they're doing. They love the fans. They love their audience. And it shows through. And WandaVision, more than almost anything else they've ever made, shows an incredible respect for their audience. And judging by the online chatter and everybody delving into Marvel Comics history, they're not wrong. So I think there's an important lesson there for everybody who's going to create some kind of a new, whether Chloe Zhao, who just finished the Eternals and has Nomadland coming. Now she's famously been announced to direct Dracula. I don't know if that's going to fit in. Are they going to try and make a shared universe of Universal monster movies with Invisible Man, now Dracula? I mean, an Old West cyberpunk space science fiction Dracula. I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm there for it. I don't know if it's part of a shared cinematic universe of Blumhouse is resurrecting the Alex Kurtzman destroyed dark universe that they wanted to make, but it's still pretty interesting. And why not get somebody who might win an Academy Award, the second female director to win a regular Academy Award for directing? She has the Eternals under her belt, and maybe now she's going to have a shared universe movie over at Universal. Craziness. But anyway, also very, very exciting. When I watch an episode of WandaVision, I know that I, as an audience member and as an Uber fan, I'm being treated right by the creators. And that is the best lesson, the best thing that you need to understand. As I'm getting thrown over and beaten to a pulp by Star Trek for their disrespect to me as an audience member, I feel I'm like leaving the shelter and I go over and watch a Marvel Cinematic Universe effort like, well, WandaVision, and they're making sure that they're like, Rob, can we get you anything? Would you like a mint julep? Can we give you a massage? And I feel, you know what I feel like WandaVision is? It's like going and getting the best massage you've ever had, and the happy ending is how great the story is that they're telling me. The happy ending comes with the big grin on my face when I come to the end of one of those episodes and realize they really care about me as an audience member because they're assuming I am very, very smart and that I will buy into this, and they're even ahead of me. That, to me, is how to make a great franchise, and that is why WandaVision, like the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, works. Because they know their audience, they love their audience, and they will never talk down to their audience. And that's the secret of a great franchise and its longevity.